Hello, everybody. This is the Ice Bath podcast number 3. And I'm delighted today to have with me Bridget Carter from the Isle of Man. We met 10 years ago on an investigation. And we're going to talk today about we're going to talk about in 30 minutes or so about the spectrum of abuse of the elderly, which is very complex. And I know that you've got a lot of experience there. So what's the problem, Bridget? What is it?
So coercive control is the problem. So the abuse of the elderly is not just the elderly. The coercive control is the problem here, and this is at the root of all problems like elderly financial abuse, predatory marriage, parental alienation, trafficking, companies, coercive control and compliance within companies. I think a lot of people might not realize that coercive control can plant its seed and weave its way in and out of any area just about. And I think because you've got the patterns of abuse, they're the same patterns of abuse that fall within domestic abuse, child abuse,
Hmm.
elderly financial abuse, any kind of abuse that you're looking at the top of the tap. So you've got your heart of the matter is coercive control, and right at the top you've got the end game, which could on most accounts is likely to be for financial gain.
Hmm.
But you do have in domestic abuse, you have for control because people just need that control. And you could get that in other areas too, obviously. But the heart of all of it is coercive control. So that's where we're at.
So, for those who are not sort of accustomed to it, have never heard of it before, can you give an example of what coercive control is? And if it's in the context of the elder side of things, it's absolutely fine. Just for somebody who's never heard of it before.
Okay, so coercive control itself, if we look at it, it's a pattern of intentional behavior and it's used to exert power over another, including isolation from family members, financial abuse for financial abuse, and to undermine autonomy. That can happen within companies, elder abuse,
Mhm.
parental alienation, all of that, predatory marriage, all of that works in relation to the patterns of that abuse. So the patterns include a grooming, which is trust building and dependency. So you've got isolation from support networks. You've got controlling access to money, care, communication, and healthcare. There's quite a list of it. You're looking at like making decisions for the victim, which is in their best interest,
Hmm.
supposedly. Repeated denials, blame shifting, gaslighting, undermining autonomy, creating fear-based compliance, manipulation of systems to legitimize control. For example, that's like legal, medical, and financial.
Hmm.
So those patterns apply across all contexts, not just romantic relationships, but also in parent-child dynamics, professional caregiving, friendships, authority roles, that kind of thing. And I
Hmm.
think people will be able to relate to that
Yeah.
in relation to the various outcomes, whether it be predatory marriage, elder financial abuse, any of that really, even within company structures.
So it's almost like being placed in prison, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. It's a pretty
Yeah.
scary place to be for
Yeah.
those and for those afterwards. So the knock-on effects is not just the victims, it's how the family and connections, friends feel after the shock of the understanding what's going on, especially when a lot of this, majority of this is not dealt with by the police or anywhere because it's not being taken seriously as far as it's being is at surface level is one thing in coercive control, the insidious form of it, which is hidden in plain sight, is if people think that you can't see it, so therefore it's not there, but you can because it's a pattern.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So
And it's a bit like when you're putting a crime together and you've got your, what's it called, you don't haven't got a body, but you can still get it on circumstances.
yeah.
You've still got the patterns and they all link together. And you can see those patterns
Hmm.
if you are trained properly.
Yeah.
So therefore, you're looking at the training tools here. This is the problem. Coercive control is at the heart of it. And then you've got your rings around that, which gives you your grooming, your gaslighting, all of the things we've just touched on. And then from there, that branches off into your domestic abuse, your financial abuse of elderly people, child grooming, trafficking. It's wide. It's a wide big thing, and
Hmm.
it all branches off into a relevant aspect of financial abuse for somebody, so it's there, but you've got to touch on the coercive control aspect of it, where it comes from. And so what happens is because they're not trained, they haven't got the right tools,
Yeah.
the police, the judiciary, lawyers, lawyers, I don't even know, I don't think they get trained in that anyway. I think they just go along with what the legislation says, and then they hammer it out with the prosecution or whoever. I don't know that end of it. But because they're not getting trained, it's not being picked up. So the judiciary, at the end of it, the judge, once it goes to court, if it goes to court at all, of course, excuse me, will likely go with what he believes, they believe is going on here. And if they're not trained in it, they're not going to see it either. So it's going to be what you can prosecute for, which is likely the fraud aspect of it only, if you can prove the fraud.
Yeah, and work backwards.
Which is the theft, and as you know, so the coercive control, if you've got surface level and it's texting and stuff like that, sometimes that might be used as a pattern, which it is a pattern, but that too can be left to ignored, to concentrate just on the outcome. We've got him. Domestic abuse, we've got him, because it was physical and it's there, and it's but you can't see, you can see the bruises, you can't see what's going on behind the scenes. And yet the as defined by the Office of Home Affairs in the UK, you've got the statutory guidance, which is 2023. That's the coercive control, and they define it, they narrow it right down, which is very good. I mean, there's more to it, but it does say that doesn't cover it all. It's there's a long list. It's not inclusive, so that the police people, they should take it on board, work it out, pay attention. There's things that they need to train themselves with, but it's tick box. You see the DARA and the dash, they're a tick box tool. So this is what you're up against, tick boxes, and people think they're trained. And then you've got the victims families. Sometimes the victims are alive. Obviously, you've got a lot of posthumous cases that come forward because it's taken that long to get in there, and the people are still alive while this is happening. And that's the scary thing, is you've got a lot of people still alive fighting for their own sanity, being ignored by people like the OPG, for instance, who have, say it's an older person, they've got a crooked daughter who has realized that they want, they've got an interest, they're self-entitled, for instance, so they will go along and get this what do you call it, a power of attorney signed for and everything, manipulate that family member. Sometimes they don't even have to. Sometimes I think they just can get away with forgery and stuff, because there's just simply not enough checks, even though they'll deny it. You've got the people out there that can show that these things are happening. There it is in black and white. This is what's happened. There's the evidence, there's the recordings, there's everything. You've got people crawling out the woodwork there with evidence to say what's happening is that you're not paying attention, you're not doing your job. Now, whether that's down to training or what, arrogance, I don't know, but it is a massive systemic failure, and that's what it is.
And do you think the attitude is, and I'm thinking back now to my time in the police, in particular, my time in child protection, 4 years, and vulnerable witnesses who didn't really have a voice. And the attitude might be, well, it's too difficult to prove. We can't prove it. Is it that the sort of response you're getting?
You do get that in a sense, yes. You just get it's not in the public interest, because they don't understand, they don't put it together, because they're not trained to put it together. They're trained to tick those boxes. Have they got bruises? Have they got this, that? You look at the dash, which is well out of date now, but some forces are still using it. I don't think they're using it in England and Wales, but they are on the Isle of Man, which is ironic, because that came out, so that was out in 2009, I think. And the Isle of Man Domestic Abuse Act, which covers coercive control, came out. It was actually launched officially in 2023, but it's a 2021, I think it is, domestic Act. So the Isle of Man police are using the dash, which is outdated and superseded by the DARA, the Domestic Abuse Risk Assessment, which has a bit more in depth about coercive control. So it gives more protection.
Yeah, I get it. So
than the gaps. So you've still got massive systemic failure, because they're being trained, and that's their training, because the people who created it didn't actually, they've got people who, because they're in a professional position, they're a police, ex-police, they're psychiatrists, doctors, whatever, they've looked at it and thought, well, yes, this is it, that makes sense. It makes sense to them, but they haven't got enough confirmation from the public consultation. I don't know, I haven't seen the public consultation. I've tried to, and I don't see anywhere that other people, other than people who've got bruises or whatever they've said, they've taken on board. There's more to it than that. There's much more to it than that. And yet as defined by the Home Affairs statutory guidance, that is in there as well, but it's not in the DARA. So the DASH is outdated. The DARA's in, but it's not a good tool. It's not relevant, not fit for purpose in my eyes and many other people's eyes either. And of course, the police, well, it's the politicians who make the laws, give the guidance. Surely, whoever wherever that concept come from, that they realise that it's relevant, needed to have somebody the same sort of background to put forward towards the police of some way of getting it to them to understand. And it's not just the police, is it? The OPG, you've got registrars, people like that. You've got look at Joan Blass, for instance, Daphne Frank's mother, predatory marriage. And so you go back to the core here, it's coercive control. It is illegal. Joan Blass was married to the perpetrator, who abused her, yet he wasn't found guilty of that because they didn't understand the concept of coercive control. So therefore, Joan Blass was married to this guy in the registry office. They talked to her. She didn't even know what street she lived on. I think it was the street or the house number. One of them she got wrong anyway. They didn't do any testing. I mean, it's not a cognitivity test anyway, is it? Because coercive control is quite different. Something people don't even know they're being coerced. Joan was on medication. There was so much wrong there, but the registrar accepted that they were okay and off they went. When she died, that's when Daphne and the family found out that she was actually married. When they took that to the CPS, they basically turned around and said, well, the registrar said that she was okay. This is the CPS. This is part of the people who put the blooming thing there in the first place, did the statutory guidance. Well, they're all related, aren't they, along the line? Yeah. And yet they didn't see those patterns. So look at that case. Look at every other case. And you can see that that's coercive control. You can see Daphne can show that quite clearly. Those patterns are there, but they weren't picked up. And that was utilised in the Serious Crime Act 2015 in the UK. So that's 2015, 2016 when this happened. So of course that was a crime, and that should have been looked at in that area, and yet it wasn't.
Yeah. So often it's after the event, isn't it? I'm thinking here that for people who are sort of listening to this and those who work in financial crime investigations or they work in the financial crime arena, what sort of things would you suggest they should be looking for to identify instances of potential coercive control of an elderly person or anybody really, an adult?
Well, it's all down to training. The training is there if they actually pay attention to the patterns of abuse. You could look, for instance, at Peter Farquhar. That was on TV, wasn't it, recently? And the what was it called? The Sixth Commandment.
Right.
That would be a perfect training tool. Yeah. Watch that. It's a 3-parter. It's got all the patterns of abuse in there.
Yeah.
That went to court, and yet the Serious Crime Act 2015 covering the coercive was a bit later on, but they were married, they were all, the whole lot was there, the whole kit and caboodle, and yet Ben Field was only prosecuted on the fraud aspect of it, and murder, and obviously murdered, but that murder wouldn't have even come to light if it hadn't have been for Peter's neighbour Anne Moore Martin down the road's niece, having realised something was wrong, saw the patterns of abuse, didn't realise obviously what they were, but obviously there's something wrong, pinpoints it, gets the police involved, and that knock-on effect effectively gets Peter's murder uncovered. Yeah. So that's a great training tool. Understand what patterns were in that. I mean, I do training so I can help people understand. So it is possible to train, but the problem is you can't, it's not a tick box exercise, because although control is a series of patterns, sometimes it deviates slightly depending on what the end game is. Control, that financial abuse at the end, what is it, abuse, that kind of thing, parental alienation. You've got the different aspects of it, so you've got to look at it from that point of view. You're not going to get you're not going to get, well, you will get people being drugged. Look at, what was her name, Giselle Piliquet from France. Look what her husband did to her.
Yeah.
The drugs. How many older people are on those drugs, lorazepam, diazepam? And diazepam is known as a date rape drug in some places, has been used, but it's not wildly picked up by the police as being a date rape drug, the same as lorazepam. But you've got to look at the people that have been victims. You've got to look at polypharmacy and how easy it is for somebody to access drugs these days. Got an older parent on these drugs, they might go to the doctor, like Malcolm Webster, for instance. You're going back to Malcolm Webster, the guy who murdered his first wife, got her insured. The length some people will go to for financial abuse is incredible, but it's seen as murder or fraud. The core here is coercive control. This is how they are doing it. This is how they're getting away with it up to a point. Some of them never get caught. If it wasn't for Anne Moore Martin's niece, I forgot her name, Anne-Marie Black, I think it is, Blackley, they would never have found any of this out, and Peter Farquhar dead and buried, and nobody would have suspected anything. But because she had the nance to look a bit deeper.
I always think from my, I'm going to wind way back now to the 1980s when I first joined the police.
You had hair.
We used to have a drawer in one of the small little station, a little drawer, and you'd get these forms, and it was called an NIB 74. And there was a little box on this form. It said it was effectively the modus operandi, the MO. How does this person work? And from everything you've said there is that there's got to be typologies of people and offenders that we should, or the law enforcement agents, I'm not just policing actually, I'm thinking social workers, doctors, everybody in that sort of partnership arena should have access to the typologies of these sorts of offenders, because and really our victims react to it as well. So without that, the training will just go back to exactly what you said about tick boxing.
100%, 100%. Victims should be able to, if they wanted to, if they weren't obviously well, you can be traumatized, can't you, so far beyond being able to actually deal with life as you ever knew it before, once you've experienced these kind of abuses. But there's a lot of victims out there who become campaigners like myself to make things better, to highlight and raise awareness of these systemic failures. These people are doing everything they can. They eat, sleep and drink coercive control, and how that had raising awareness of the same, trying to get people to listen. I mean, I've spoke to Kim Ledbetter. She's a lovely lady. She's been a long time and discussed my understanding of it. But of course, it was a bit drowned out by what was going on with the assisted dying and everything. So I didn't feel like I could actually get out what I needed to say. I did say what I had to say, but I don't think it was powerful enough. And to be fair, there's other aspects I've learned since then about coercive control, like the training, for instance. I've been harping on about training. We need expert-led training. And what you get from people like the government here, when I've said, but we need expert-led training. Yes, we've got expert-led training. We're experts, gone to the police with cases. People have come to me and said, look, just tell me, have I got a case to answer? And I can say, yes, you've got a case to answer. I can put that case together. I say, there's a report to say you've got a case to answer. Well, you take that to the police, who are going to say it's not in the public interest, because they're not true, that these people have got a case to answer. So these people outside are running around like headless chickens with their cases to answer, going to the OPG. They're being let down left, right and centre. Everybody's failing them. It's a civil matter. It's nothing to do with us. Take it to whoever and the safeguarding teams. It's a civil matter. Take it to the police. It's not a civil matter. It's a civil matter. And they're backwards and forwards. They don't know what's going on, but they know it's wrong. You don't get to treat people like that and get away with it, Colin. You don't. And that's what's happening. And it's a bit like the post office debacle. Look at the Horizon computer system. It's a failure. It's a massive systemic failure. These people are being let down. Are they going to wait until these people are all dead before they come forward and say, oh, well, we put our hands up now and say, we screwed up? It's not acceptable. They are ignoring these people. We go to investigators, journalists, investigative journalists, and we're told if it affects their area, then they'll deal with it. But it's got to be shocking and horror, and you know what I mean? It's got to be something. This is horrific. This systemic failure is horrific. It is a nationwide crisis, but they're not joining the dots. So what you've got is this little case, this little bit. You've got the OPG involved here, then you've got these involved here. So they're dealing with aspects of that bigger picture, and they're not joining the dots. And the joining of the dots is what creates the big picture to show the abuse. And then you've got it. But then there's no training. So their aspect. So you've got the police, as you know, you've now got that domestic abuse area.
Yeah.
And when you send something it's domestic abuse and you're not battered, you're not physically attacked, bruised, or whatever, you've got the economic abuse section of that bigger picture will go off to the economic people, and the other bits will go off to there, and then it'll go off there. So they all look at it, but they haven't got the bigger picture to see the concept as a whole. And the concept as a whole is what you're looking at in respect of coercive control. They're breaking it down. What I don't know, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think that there are many police stations in the UK that have a domestic abuse that considers the whole lot as a whole, that goes in and says, yes, 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 there's the bigger picture, we can see that. But I could be wrong, maybe there's one or two that do. I recently had a case that was to go to Yorkshire, it happened in Yorkshire, in Barnsley, to try and get it to the right police. There's so many police, there's got South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, and you've got to find the right one. That was a nightmare. I had to go there for them to say, oh no, actually it's not for us, and then go there, to the next one, South Yorkshire. It's such a long-winded thing that, obviously the person posthumously done, but the families are being traumatized and re-traumatized. This shouldn't happen. The law is there, but the training says it's not.
But there is an answer at the very beginning. I mean, I'm going to wind back to many years ago when I first got in the world of intelligence and analysis. And one of the things we did, we extracted information from the call center about calls to certain addresses. So you'll know about repeat victimization. If something happens once, it can happen again. And you started looking at a pattern of calls to the address at certain times of day and night. And then if you're able to extract and use that data properly, you would know that is a place that needs priority work. And the thing is, and I know the police have got those sorts of systems, as have all the other agencies. And I to this day, I wonder, is all this information being joined up? Because that was a recommendation 20 years ago. And if we had the information at our fingertips rather, then surely the outcomes will be better for the victim.
So we can't blame everything on the politicians, obviously, apart from the fact that they'll only deal with their own constituents. So when you're looking at something, excuse me, international, I mean, I've even taken to sitting there at night time at home and sending an email off to every politician in the UK for them to come back with their automatic messages to say, if you are not a constituent, I'm like, oh, do you know what? I'm putting so much time in. So many people are putting so much time in. The arrogance and the ignorance is deafening out there. It's like, whoa, it's like, hang on a minute. It's frightening to think that so many people are being abused right under their noses, and because of their failings, people cannot be heard. So of course you've got all these police that maybe they're not wrong because they're the chief of police. They hand out their yearly, what do you call them, police reports and stuff, address coercive control, and we've got the dash, and it's like, the dash, really? Have you actually looked at the dash? Have you done your homework on the dash? No, obviously not, because if you did, it wouldn't be there. You wouldn't be working to the dash. I mean, your Coercive Control Act is there. It's got everything in there to say what it's about. Yet you're working to the dash, which is the UK tool. Where's your Isle of Man tool? Who's paying for the UK tool? Is it free? Possibly it's free. But who's your backup if it goes wrong? You can't be free then. So we, the public, paying for you to be using the wrong tools, for us, or the people, to jump up and down and say, what's happening here? It's no case to answer. Yeah, of course it's a case to answer. It's a bloody crime. There is the crime. We're showing the pattern. The same in the UK. Who's paying for this outdated tool to be in effect? Who for the people to do the training? Are they still being paid to be trained? Why are you paying people to be training if the tool's not effective? It's not covering all aspects of what it's meant to do. These sort of things that need to be addressed. The politicians don't come back to you. The journalists don't come back to you. GMTV, they've got gatekeepers. So the gatekeepers will get all the emails. So you've got the people who do the journalism, who have the stories and take off. They only get presented the big stories, the crime, the something that's topical there and then. Something that's a shock factor, isn't it? It's like your magazines and the hairdressers want to grab your attention on the front page, and then you think, that's horrible, But this is horrible because all those little stories, they're not little stories, they're big stories. But look at the post office debacle. That, in comparison, is just an offshoot of the crux of it all, which is the black heart, which is coercive control. That only managed to get out there because of coercive control. The people in power, look at their reaction, how arrogant. And this is the arrogance of the system, because they don't seem to have a heart, because they're not an individual, they're an institution, and it's the institutions that are the system that are failing us. And they can pass the buck, or it's not on my watch. And you get that a lot from politicians. Don't bring that forward, not on my watch, I've only got another year to go. Nobody wants to open that can of worms. It's going to come. They're going to open it, and it's poof. I don't think they'll ever get the lid back on it. And it should be open. And I think as we're moving forward now, people are saying it's not acceptable. And of course, since COVID, there is much more abuse. Or since the internet, the power of the internet too. People coming forward, Facebook, LinkedIn. People are braver. They're happier to. Rather go there somehow, and that's what they should do, because the system's not helping them to sort it out.
No, I agree. I think one thing that's sort of coming to my mind when I'm thinking, everything you've said is absolutely bang on. Bearing in mind the audience, because we're not going to have sufficient influence on people like the politicians and the sort of strategic side of things, we can make a difference with people who work in financial crime. If you were to bear in mind the time, we're down to the last few minutes, give me 3 things that you can pass on to people that are at the coalface investigating financial crime that's going to help them understand this a bit better, maybe prevent a crime or 2 or 3 or more. Give them some tools in the last few minutes that they can take away from this and do something about.
Give who? The people fighting the victims, families?
The people that listen to this podcast are going to be working in financial crime. So
I think they need to look at the crux of coercive control, understand the legislation, look at the statutory guidance, prepare yourself, familiarise yourself, educate yourselves, and help us to help the people. That's the way forward. Look at the patterns of the abuse, look at the DARA, the DASH, things like that will give you an understanding of what we're up against. Because once you see the reality, once you can see that I'm right here, then you'll be able to move forward. Because right now, people will look at it and think, well, is she right or isn't she right? Look at it yourself. I mean, I did have a gentleman that Heleth Wynne recommended contact me today, and it was great to hear from, although I was just about to come on a call with you. And he said Heleth had recommended him, and he'd done his homework on what I've been posting all over LinkedIn. And he said, and you're right, Bridge, you're right. And that was like, wow, somebody's done their homework. That's great, because I mean, I could be spouting off all sorts, because I could be some kind of neurotic weirdo, and there are plenty of those out there, but I'm not. I'm the daughter of an abused mother, and I'm a campaigner to help people like Daphne Franks, daughter of an abused mother. There's others. You're looking at coercive control and compliance within companies and things. Coercive control, it hides behind hierarchy. Whistleblowers, their silence. Toxic cultures lead to systemic compliance. There's so much more gravity to this than just elderly financial abuse. Not that that's just anything, because that's massive. That is a massive money-making thing for perpetrators out there. I mean, you only have to look at some of the care homes, and you have to look at things like that. What was it called? The one with, I can't even remember her name now. What was it called? It's about a nursing home in America. No, I can't remember.
Yeah, there's so many of them, don't there?
So many. Yeah. Go and look at that Peter Farquhar one. That massive. You look at that with new eyes once you've understood coercive control. Once you look it up, see what the patterns really are. You'll see it. They'll see it around them. It's happening. You can see it in offices. You know.
I mean, fraudsters are manipulators, and very clever manipulators, and this is your worst type of.
I care a lot. It's come back to me now. I care a lot. That's
Oh,
what the
right,
next
okay.
thing was.
Yeah.
It, but yeah, it's not real. That's not real, but it's based on real life. You can see it's happened in the UK. There's a massive one in the UK recently, a few years ago. But yeah, sorry, yeah, it is. It's big. It's bigger than people realize. It's bigger than the post office debacle.
Yeah.
It's bigger than the Bloods, than everything else, because it is at the crux of what's happened there. The coercive control, the power, the arrogance of the people in control, that have put these people in the spotlight now, fighting for justice,
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. It's about fighting for justice of the people in the past and to protect those in the future going forward. And it is on our doorstep. And if we don't pay attention and we don't join forces, it's just going to envelop everybody until it's too late. And so many people, they don't take it on board until it happens to them. And then they're screaming blue murder.
No.
I know what you mean, Bridget, for now.
Yeah. And that I've said to you many times before, but we all hope to grow older ourselves, don't we? So
but yeah, look at exactly, and you helped me so much in the past with where I am now, having that domain and pretending to be her on that. And I'm thinking, how does she write in these emails? Because it's like, what's going on here? She's changed her will that many times. And I didn't even know that until long after she'd passed away. And it was like, yeah, because you pointed out that, you need a domain fraud. His name, he was the whole kit and caboodle. Yeah. It's his name, it was registered to him. He could access her remotely. He had the power. And this is what they have. They have the power to impersonate you. And if it's what they're after, they know it. They know how to manipulate you. They know how to get what they want, and they'll stop at nothing until they've got it. And they've got enablers. They bring people in, professional enablers, unwittingly or wittingly.
Yeah. Okay, that's been we've sort of just up to time now.
You kind of froze.
No, see, I don't know if we've got a connection problem, but no, you're back again. So that is, how do people connect with you on LinkedIn? Is it Bridget Carter, if they want to find you and sort of connect and follow you?
Yeah, Bridget Carter on LinkedIn, Bridget Carter on Facebook. I'm all over the place. They'll find me. Go on the internet. Go on the internet.
They won't miss you.
Isle of Man. Yeah.
All right.
Financial abuse. It's there somewhere. Thank you, Colin.
Thanks you. Thanks very much.